Okay guys, here we go on a removal of a load-bearing wall. So if you're going to be undertaking removal of a load-bearing wall, it must be done compliantly and effectively and efficiently with a system and an approach to it, a total plan of work from start through to finish. You're going to do this sort of thing in your own home. You can do this sort of thing in a flip where you're going to be opening up the downstairs space, usually taking out the wall between the kitchen and living room. Also, if you're going to be doing HMO conversion, something like that, where we're moving walls around. So, what I want to go through is the type of stuff that you need to be considering when you're doing this type of work. So, from start to finish there, that's what we're going to be doing. So, we're going to plan it. I'm going to go through what the unseen costs are, professional fees, where building control and planning come in, other consideration, couple of top tips that we've picked up over the years of doing this. The actual physical work, which is the video that you saw this morning, and the waste management of the waste as a result of the work. So planning the work, these things here, there's a legal requirement for these things to be done. Don't pay them lip service, they have to be done. If you aren't competent to do them yourself, outsource it and get someone to do it for you. So your site safety file must include construction phase plan. That's on any project. Even if you're just a homeowner, you're supposed to have one of these. That construction phase plan must contain risk assessments, method statements. Structural engineer's report will sit alongside your plan. That also needs to be done and submitted to the local authority or private building control officer, depending upon which one you're going to be using. That engineer's report will spit out an RSJ stroke lintel design, whichever he's going to be doing, whether it's an RSJ or a lintel. And then ordering that steel or lintel, I should say lintel as well. So whichever it is that you're going to be using, be it a steel or a lintel, you need to order it at this point during this plan. So when we're planning the work, that building regulations submission needs to be done. There's a legal responsibility for you to do this as the owner-occupier, and also the builder has a responsibility to do it also. Don't try and dodge this. If you get caught taking out a load-bearing wall off the local authority, and you haven't submitted this, they will make an example of you, I guarantee it. Ordering the materials of the plant, so these are the types of things that we want to be getting absolutely nailed before we start in this plan. So that make sure you've got lifting equipment for when the steel beam arrives. Make sure that the submission's done to the local authority. The materials are ordered. The acro pops and strong boys that you need. Most builders do own these, but some do hire them. They're really cheap to hire, like £8 a week, something like that. Pad stones, make sure that the engineer's designers has designed the pad stones and they've been purchased and they are getting fitted as well. Building materials, so everything else that you need to build I'll come on to that on the physical work, but it's sort of sand, cement, slate, pad stones which is just covered, plasterboard, timbers for boxing in the beam afterwards, fireboard, there we go. And the skip, make sure the skip's ordered. So all this forms a part of your plan. Make sure all this is done, all ordered, all going to be on site before when your builder arrives. Unseen costs. Don't be surprised when your builder asks you for a deposit for this type of work. At this point, we've only planned it, but he'll have spent about £1,000 up to this point. So, and he hasn't even started work yet. So don't underestimate the cost, the unseen costs of these types of things in going into this plan. He's got consultant fees, he's got engineers fees, local authority fees, skip fees, ordering steel. All these types of costs he's going to have to pay up front out of his own pocket. So don't be surprised if the guy asks you for money up front for this type of work. Oh, there we go. So all these fees are payable by your builder up front. And if you back out for any reason or you'll change your mind or whatever that is, he's going to be left with those fees if he hasn't took that payment off you up front, which would be really unfair. Builders are becoming wary of this. We hear this quite regular, builders backing away from this sort of work unless the developer's prepared to pay that fee up front. I'll come on to how that £1,000 arrived at now. So professional fees, this is where it comes in. So your engineer's report and design, building regs submission, any architect's fees if we're working in a conservation area, listed building, if we're working Article 4, any others, if we're doing a conversion, anything like that, anything where an architect has been involved. It's unlikely for this type of work, but it can happen. Safety consultants, so you're in for £600 there already, straight away. Building control, often an admin fee for your agent to submit. So if a developer was to say to us, yeah, can you do that for us? We just bang a quick admin fee on that, maybe 20, 25 quid, something like that, just to carry out that submission. Really easy to do yourself, so don't shy away from it. It's just a click box exercise online on the planning portal. Okay, there's a fee payable to local authority, stroke private building control officer, whichever route you're going to go down. What that fee covers is the initial visit, so he's going to come out and say, yeah, happy for you to take that wall out. The interim visit, he'll come and make an inspection, sort of halfway through before everything's covered up. It usually comes once the beam's in place, sat on the pad stones. That's when they usually come again. Then they'll come after the work to make sure it's all done. You've used the right plasterboard, etc., and then he'll sign it off, which you'll need if you're going to refinance in future or in fact sell. This fee to the building control, that's around 200 quid. So we've got the 600 already, and then this too. You're in for £800. And on top of that, we're ordering skips, steels, etc. So that's where the grand is made up. Planning department, I have touched on this. It would be unusual for them to be involved, but just so you are aware, always check with your local authority. They can only say no, you don't need it. It's just a phone call. There's no excuse for not doing it. But they will want to get involved if we are working in a listed building, carrying out a conversion, anything in Article 4. So planning would have been submitted in any case. But in every case, building regs always applies, always, every single time. You're removing a load-bearing wall, you have to get building regulations. I cannot stress how important that is. Other considerations, this is just a few top tips that we've picked up over the years doing lots and lots of this type of work. And I want you to consider them. Can the lifted equipment can you get it into the work area? So we're removing a wall from between kitchen and diner. Can you get the genie lift or the crane? Can you get it in the house? Or is it going to be a right load of chew, get it in? And if it is going to be chew, are we taking out windows? Are we taking doors out? I've got to take the machine to pieces to then rebuild it. Just things to consider. Can you maneuver the actual piece of steel or lintel, whatever it is? Can you get it through the house? Is it one of these houses where you go through a door and turn right? These are them types of properties are a nightmare to get steel in. You need to get the front window out and pass it straight through. Can the skip be sighted off road? Now don't always assume that because you've got a drive, the skip driver can just drop it on the drive. It's not always the case. We've come up against skip drivers that won't go over a normal curb. If there's no drop curb, they won't go up it. If the driveway is not wide enough, if there's trees in the drive and his arms, when they boom the skip in, if it's going to damage the tree, they won't do it. If there's a manhole in the path, they won't do it. Lots of different things that you need to consider before deciding whether that skip can be off-road. Skips can go on-road, but you need to get a permit if you're going to do that as well. Just make sure that these are just like tips. Okay, how are you going to get the waste out? Have we got room in the property to use wheelbarrows? Are we going to be bagging it up, or is it going to be armfuls? Which is it going to be? You need to know these things just to make sure that you've got the facilities there to be able to get your guys to be able to do it. Obviously, that's in order of preference. No, it's not. Barrows wants to be first. If barrows can be used, then that's great. But when the barrow's out the house, how do we get the barrow into the skip once it's full of masonry? Are we then handballing, or have we got a ramp ready? These types of things, all considerations. Top tips are going to help you and help your builder to be doing it. So as I said just before, it can be a nightmare sometimes getting a steel into a property if it's that sort of shape. Do we need to take windows and doors out to be able to get it in? Have we got a window fitter on hand to be able to put the window back in? What's the security arrangements if it's left out overnight? If the doors and windows are new or in good nick and we're trying to save them, do we need to protect them? When that saw gets going and the walls are coming down, there's going to be little chips of masonry flying everywhere. So you need to consider whether you're going to be protecting them or not. Dust and noise suppression, telling neighbours it's noisy work. Just let your neighbour know it's just a door knock. It's going to save you a lot of pain in the long run. Materials and equipment deliveries. This may sound like a nothingness, but it's really important that if you're working in a terrace street, for instance, if the truck that comes with the steel on, because it'll be a big long flatbed truck, if it can't get down the street, you're going to have problems. Same with the lifting equipment truck. That's going to be a flatbed truck. If you can't get down the streets, you're going to have problems. And not only have they got to be able to get down the street, they've got to get back out the street. So if it's a one-way or if it's a dead end, you're going to have a nightmare with these guys, and they won't bring it. They'll look at the street and they go, I ain't going up there. Got to consider it. So this work, it has to be planned. If you don't plan this, you can't just turn up and start walloping walls out. You'll get bit, guaranteed. So the physical work. So once all the plan's done and everything else we've just discovered, it's time to do the physical work. Now, the load-bearing wall needs to first be prepared, and what I mean by that is all the services need removing. So we got to consider gas, water, waste, sockets, switches, radiators. If there's any of them things on the wall, it needs to be off. It needs to be off for obvious reasons. Load-bearing walls carry loads. That's why they're called a load-bearing wall. So what we've got to do is temporarily support the load which is above the wall we're about to remove. The most common thing to be above a load-bearing wall is another wall. It can be a floor, but which is also a load anyway. But what we're going to go through on this little training today is we're going to speak about a wall being above. So this is the best I can do as a simple analogy. So we've got two walls, downstairs wall, upstairs wall, and we're going to take this wall away. So this wall needs to obviously be supported. Okay, so either way, whether it's a floor or not, I'll just tell you, just explain how the floor thing works as well. Let's go another pen. So if that's the downstairs wall and there's a floor joist ending on that wall and a floor joist ending on that wall, we'll take that wall away and then the two floor joists are going to be all flappy. So they also need to be supported. So either way, whether it's a wall above or it's two floor joists, that wall that's coming out needs to be temporarily supporting the wall above. So once we've got that supported using acro props and strong buoys, and now what they are, if that's the wall above, we have a strong buoy below. An acro prop, which is one there. You'll have seen it on the video this morning. And then a strong buoy is going to carry that load temporary while we get the steel in. And once those acros are all set and the strong buoys are set, we can take out the masonry beneath. It's noisy, dusty, labour-intensive work. And once that's done, the grounds then need to be prepared. The grounds are the piers that are going to be carrying the RSJ. So if the RSJ is there, these two piers that are going to be carrying that load, sometimes it's pocketed into existing walls. And your engineer's report is going to tell you which you can and can't do. But if we're preparing grounds, that's a rebuilding or the setting and making good of any piers that's carrying the steel beam. So those grounds need to be prepared. So that is the pillars to be either be left in or built. Now those pillars are usually 6 inch, but sometimes can be 4 in old money. That seat, that bearing, that again is dictated by your structural engineer's report. He will tell you what he wants to see. The lifting equipment can now be prepared. So the lifting equipment's then going to come into the wall that's now supported, and the RSJ will be loaded up onto the lifting equipment. It's cranked up into position. So again, you'll have seen it on the video. The beam is cranked up to the ceiling, pushed into place. It's now going to be taking that load. The crane, the Genie lift, stays in place with the forks underneath, pegs it up underneath. So going back to the analogy before, so that wall's now gone. The RSJ is now carrying that load above, but the crane is still supporting the RSJ, so it's just carrying it like that. It's cranked into position, and now the pad stones need fitting. So the pad stones sit on top of the grounds. So the two pillars that we've built, we've got the RSJ up in the air, but there's a difference now between the RSJ, underside of the RSJ, and the top of the two grounds that you've built. And that difference is made up with pad stones. Again, the pad stones are designed by the engineer. Make sure that they get put in. A lot of builders try and dodge that step because they're about 30 quid each. So the RSJ is now in place, cranked up tight above the load above, underneath with the pad stones in place. Now there's going to be a couple of mil difference between the underside of the RSJ and the top of the pad stone. That's packed up now with slate. So that slate gets knocked into place, so it's all nice and tight. That all gets all gets wedged in, so it's all rock solid now, and then around the slate all gets pointed up and left to cure. The temporary supports, once it's cured, of course, the temporary supports now need to be removed, and then once those temporary supports are removed, those loads that where we've took out the wall, the loads from above are now hitting the RSJ and they're dispersing across the RSJ and being transposed down through the two piers, through the pad stones, into the piers and down into the ground. We then clear site before the stage 2 starts. So stage 2, now the RSJ is fitted and the load-bearing walls removed. These are just some bit of extra value for you. So look and assess the floor levels. The RSJ now needs to be boxed in. What am I on about with the floor levels? So sometimes these walls are built from the ground up and not on top of the floor slab. So sometimes the floors in the two rooms can be not level. So you need to make an assessment of whether they need leveling or bringing up or ticking down or whatever that is. RSJ needs boxing in, so this is usually done with noggins and fireboard. Some builders don't like fireboard, it's heavy and it's expensive, and they like to double board it. Both methods are acceptable by building control. Fireboard's identified because it's pink, you only need one wrap. If you double board, you can use the white stuff and just go around twice, gives you the same fire protection. Wall chasers, so where you've took out the walls, if we're not building up piers and we're pocketing in to existing walls, there's going to be a chase where that wall came out. That also is going to need making good. Obviously the floor chase where the walls come out of the floor, and then we're going to be beading, skimming to finish. Last section now, waste management. Make sure you dispose of it correctly. You're responsible for that waste from cradle to grave, so from the moment it gets knocked down until it ends at its final resting place, if you like, you're responsible for that waste. You are. And if you're fitting a 4 metre beam and we're moving masonry from a single skim wall, be it brick, block or whatever, an 8-yard skip should be plenty to get that beam out. Consider manual handling. You will have done this in your risk assessment right at the beginning in the planning phase. Skip licenses. So these are things that you must consider under waste management. If you can segregate, if you've got the ability to segregate, what do I mean by that? So if we've got masonry in one and timber in another, you will get a discount from your skip supplier. We should do. Contaminated waste should be segregated anyway. So expanding foam, silicon, that type of thing. That is it. Hope you got some value from that. Any questions on removing a load-bearing wall, do drop me a message. Drop me a message below, and I'll answer them as best as I can. We've done hundreds of these, so we know pretty much everything there is to know about this type of work. Okay, speak to you soon, guys.